When I was 13, I experienced the ghost of my grandmother. She died in her sleep while taking a nap on the living room couch. Afterwards, according to my father and grandfather, every now and then they could hear her make a trip from the bedroom to the kitchen and open the refrigerator door, a trip she made many times while she was alive. At first, I thought my father and grandfather were making this up, having fun at my expense. A couple years after she passed away, my father and I went to spend the weekend with my grandfather. My father and I slept on the living room couch. It opened into a double bed, the same couch my grandmother died on. My grandfather left the house to go to the next door neighbors and play poker. My father and I went to bed in the living room. My father went right to sleep. I laid awake reading a magazine. After a while, I heard the noise of the back bedroom door being pulled open. I heard the sound of shuffling feet. I heard the creak in the floor directly in front of the bathroom doorway. I heard more shuffling feet. Then I heard the fridge door being pulled open, and I heard the sound of glass bottles in the fridge door clinking against each other. Back then, they were still putting soft drinks in glass bottles. Feeling thirsty, I decided to get out of bed and go join my grandfather in the kitchen for a cold drink. I go into the kitchen, only to find myself all alone. I was puzzled. I could have sworn I heard my grandfather walk from the bedroom into the kitchen and open the fridge. Then I remembered that my grandfather wasn't home. He was over at the neighbor's house and he hadn't come back. Then I remembered my grandfather's and father's ghost stories. Then I got scared. I raced from the kitchen into the living room and leaped over my sleeping father into my side of the bed. Then I went to sleep. I don't know how long I slept before I woke up with a start, a feeling of paralyzing fear in my body. I was frozen. I was lying on my right side. It took me a while for me to work up the courage to turn my head to the left. My head was covered by my blanket. There was a shadow being cast onto my blanket. The shadow was the outline of a head and shoulders of a woman with a beehive hairdo. My grandmother used to always have a beehive hairdo even years after it went out of style, up until she died. I heard a heavy breathing coming from the shadow. I had to work up the courage to move one of my hands to remove the blanket off of my face. When I did, in an instant, the paralyzing fear I felt was gone. The shadow was gone. The sound of heavy breathing was gone. My father was still sleeping. I pulled the blanket back over my head and went to sleep, only to wake up again on my right side. The paralyzing fear was back. Forcing myself to turn my head, the shadow was back. The heavy breathing was back. Again, I had to summon all my courage to move my hand to take my blanket off my face, only to find nothing there and the paralyzing fear gone. I went through this same routine the entire night. I lost count of how many times this happened throughout the night. Maybe a dozen, maybe more, but it happened a lot. The next morning, I told my father what happened to me throughout the entire night while he slept. The sound of the bedroom door opening, the shuffling feet, the fridge door opening, nobody in the kitchen, being awakened with paralyzing fear, the shadow, the heavy breathing, the repeat performances throughout the night. I kind of expected him to tell me that I was just seeing and hearing things, but instead he smiled and exclaimed, "That was Grandma." I was about 12 or 13 years old. One time I was walking to my psychiatrist for my weekly appointment. It's a half an hour walk and after dark. I enjoyed walking, especially after dark when things were quiet, peaceful, and slow and no one else was around. No, I didn't live in a dangerous neighborhood, nor did my walk take me through any dangerous neighborhoods. As I'm about halfway to my destination, a car, a Cadillac, comes driving down the street. Some people, both male and female, in the car are sticking themselves halfway out the windows and are taunting me and jeering me as they drive by. A bunch of people in their late teens or early 20s. I ignore them and keep on walking. About a minute or two, the same car comes down the same street again, and those people are jeering me and taunting me again. I don't know who they are, maybe they live in the neighborhood. I still ignore them and keep on walking. Another minute or so goes by, and again, they come driving down the street, taunting and jeering me. Now I'm worried. They're circling the block over and over, deliberately focusing on me. As soon as they reach the corner and make their turn and out of sight, I duck behind some bushes in someone's front yard and wait. The car comes again down the street, This time, not seeing me walking down the street, they're not jeering. They pass right by me in my hiding place and turn the corner. I think they think I've finally reached my destination, one of the houses on the block, and went inside as a result, and drove away. I thought wrong. Stupidly, I leave my hiding place and go back to walking on my way to my psychiatrist. I should have stayed behind those bushes much longer because I hear the car approaching. They spot me and start taunting and jeering again. They turn the corner. This time, I run towards my destination, but I know I won't get far before the car and those kids catch up with me again. So to that effect, I decided to hide again behind the bushes in front of an apartment building. This time, resolving to stay there for good until the thugs in the car give up their search for me. I'm hiding there behind the bushes, but not for long. Maybe about 30 seconds or so when those guys whose apartment it is pops out from his apartment, asking what I'm doing hiding in his bushes. At first he thinks I'm a burglar or something, but I explain how I'm walking to my psychiatrist and how I'm being followed and harassed by a bunch of kids in a car, which was why I was hiding in his bushes. The guy can instantly tell from the tone of my voice and facial expression that I'm telling the truth. He can see how scared I am. Just then the car comes down the street and pulls up right at the curb directly in front of us. They look at me and the guy I'm with, not a mean looking guy in his late 30s, early 40s, but tough and serious looking enough. He's not wearing a shirt, but he's wearing a sleeveless undershirt which reveals that this guy's upper body is very well toned, slightly muscular, and no fat. I'm looking at the car and realize it's missing a few people inside. The car doesn't look so full now. The guy I'm with just gives them a wee stare. He asks me, "You know them?" I explain that no, I don't know them, and I haven't had the slightest idea who they are. Just then, as the car is sitting there, about 3 of them approach walking from the other direction. The car was traveling east to west. Those 3 were walking on foot from west to east, so that's why the car seemed not so full. They were looking to escalate the situation. They weren't satisfied with just driving by and taunting me. They changed tactics. A few of them got out of the car ahead and started walking towards me while the ones in the car took another turn around the block. Their plan was now to physically trap me in between themselves and their car, perhaps grab me and drag me into the car with them for whatever reasons. But seeing my tough guy guardian angel with me, the kids walking towards the car instead got into the car and took off. The guy offered to stay with me for a little longer, or if I wanted to duck into his apartment and stay there until I was sure I was safe to continue on my journey. I had a feeling that this was the last I was going to see those guys and their car, and I didn't want to be late for my appointment, so I thanked the guy for his offer but declined, and decided to head on my way. The guy went back into his apartment and closed the door. I looked at the closed door and hoped that I didn't make a mistake by turning down the guy's offer of better safety, because I was still scared. Thankfully, I was right about not seeing the car again. The rest of my walk I was unmolested. I reached my psychiatrist's office, told my therapist about what happened. He insisted on calling the police. The police came and took a report from me, and that's the last I ever heard of it. On my way home, I usually took the same route I came from, up the same streets, but this evening I varied my way home, taking some different side streets to walk on. Never saw those car thugs again. Here is, via Google street search, the very spot I hid. That door was the guy's apartment. That grassy area behind the low black metal fence on the left were the bushes that I hid behind. Back then, the bushes in that spot were way tall, wide, and thick, enough to hide a 12 to 13-year-old kid behind. If I hadn't ducked behind those bushes, I would have walked right into their trap, and God knows what they had in store for me once they had me trapped. I don't know if I would say the only possibility is paranormal, but it was damn weird. I had several dreams similar to what I am posting. I've been a caver in Florida for about 13 years since I was about 6, and have been to a lot of caves. Never been afraid to go into this one. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I started having this recurring dream. I would have it at least twice a year. Always the same, even though I would realize I was dreaming after the first few iterations. I would fall asleep and dream of being in a cave and going into this little hole in the bottom. Inside, I would see a 10 to 15 foot long corridor about 2 to 4 feet high. At the end, it would always turn left, and I always saw a bent red stop sign at the end, like someone ripped off the top 2 feet and tossed it in. But I would always follow the corridor. I would turn and walk past the sign despite being scared. Despite many times knowing what was there, and the corridor would start descending, quickly opening up into a large vertical chamber with a path leading down in a corkscrew. Everything became blurry at this point, but it was always the same. I saw trash scattered on the walls, I saw the pit leading down to a curved floor, I saw things undefined, animals or people or something else at the bottom, and I saw my family, each with one of the things, being tortured and killed every time. I could never do anything. After I saw that, I would be stuck for a few seconds until I felt more than saw everything turn and look at me. And I would wake up. Not like a normal dream where you just drift to consciousness or a nightmare where you bolt up in fear, but like something pushed me out, like I wasn't supposed to be there. So I have this dream multiple times a year until I turned 15. My father decided to take us to some caves we had never been before, one of which was Dog Drop. It was likely named so because someone either threw their pet in there or a coyote fell in and the body was later discovered. Dog Drop had a roughly 30-foot rappel straight down to enter. I went down with my brother while my father waited up the top. There was a hole in the ground. I started to feel uneasy, though I didn't know why. So I followed my brother into the hole. I felt worse as I moved down, and when I looked up, I saw the same corridor, the same turn, the same wall, the same bottles at the corner. I was instantly hit with this overwhelming sense of nausea and fear and being watched, and everything was screaming at me to leave. I froze and must have made some noise because my brother turned around and asked what was wrong. I managed to say I wanted to leave now and climbed out as quickly as I could, followed immediately by my brother. We packed up and left and never gone back and never will. I haven't told anybody what actually happened, just said I wasn't feeling well, and they forgot pretty quickly. The thing that really makes it creepy for me is I never had the dream again. Year after year I would have it consistently, but it just stopped after that. But I still remember it, and I still feel afraid, almost external fear when I think about it. I went on holiday to Wales in 2012 with 7 friends. 5 of my friends went to this club that was really expensive to get in, and being a poor student, me and 2 other friends decided to go on to the beach. Our apartments faced the beach when we had steps going down to our apartment, but you could also get to it from the back by walking down an alleyway with a sensor light that lit up when you walked down it. We get to this alley and I start freaking out and feeling scared to the point of almost crying. We walk down the alley onto the beach, but no one seems to be around. We walk down to the beach, seeing no one, and I still feel a bit freaked out. I look up after walking for a few seconds and see this black opaque figure in the alley we had just walked down with his arm stuck out to the side. I'm freaked out but try to keep my cool. It looks as though it's about 7 feet tall and we're away from it, so it would be rather taller close up. I go, "What the fuck is that?" and run along to the beach to the left and into the dock where there are street lamps because I'm that terrified. My friends follow and my skeptical friends ask what I'm doing, thinking I'm being mad. Before I can speak, my other friend says, "Did you not see that black figure?" The skeptical friend, who started running a couple seconds after me and looked up at the alley, says he didn't see anything in the alley after we told him what we saw. Tries to come up with answers, like it was an ill person, which is why they looked weird. Obviously, we don't know, but my other friend and I both saw it and were freaking out. It was freakishly tall and seemed sinister, and had a black opaque look to it. We saw no one and heard no one when walking down the alley. I go back to my apartment, 8 of us were sharing 2 apartments, and make them wait until 2 a.m. until the others come back. For the next couple of days, I feel freaked out sleeping in the room I share with another friend and feel like something is watching me from that corner. Although that could be I was freaked out from this experience. 2 days later, we are on the beach and I need to go to the bathroom. I'm very shy, so take all the 3 keys to our apartment and check no one needs to go in, saying I'll be back in 5 minutes. I go in with the keys in a pocket and go to the bathroom. I'd been playing a trick on a friend as the toilet light switch was in the hallway outside the loo, and had been turning it off when she was in there. I was immature. and I was on the toilet and suddenly all the lights went off, both in the loo and the hall. I could see through the crack under the door that the hall light was off. I heard laughter and footsteps and assumed I had left a key and my friends were playing a prank on me. I still felt afraid and my phone went off, and I saw I had a text from my friends begging me to let them in. I washed my hands and opened the door, terrified but still convinced me it was a prank. I went into the hallway and all the lights were off. I went into the living room where the main door was and saw my friends there outside waiting for me, looking puzzled. When I asked later, they said they felt like they should come back. I checked my pockets and I had all 3 keys, and when asking, the neighbors found out they had not had a power out. The light switch next to the bathroom had also been switched down, so it seemed as though this entity had been watching me play this prank on my friend and had copied it. I saw the black figure again down a different alleyway near some caves on the beach. We went on a ghost walk and were told about a mayor that was hanged in the area. Me and the friend who had seen it, the figure, just stared at each other at this point. And the ghost walk leader said, "Wow, have you seen it?" Although that could have been her trying to make the ghost walk scarier, and this figure didn't really look tame, if that makes sense. We got back from the ghost walk to find that our friends had started a food fight between apartments. They ran onto the beach, but some went around the front and some went around the back, down the alleyway where I first saw this figure. I ran behind them, but didn't put my shoes on, so it was behind them. It was gravelly. And saw the figure ahead of me, but it wasn't in the alleyway I had first seen it, or the second one. It's hard to describe. Perhaps I can find pictures of the surroundings. And it was at a different angle and was on the side road ahead instead of down the first alleyway, which would have been to the right. I stopped and ran back to the apartment. The next day, I made our friend drive some of us down these roads where these alleys and side roads were, and there were no statues or anything that looked like these figures. On the last day of the holiday, we went into the other apartment where our friends were in, which wasn't where I had my occurrences with the lights going off, but it was next to the alley where I first saw this figure. And the kettle was unplugged for a phone charger to go in, and was taken off the kettle stand that kettles used to boil on. Can't think of the name. It boiled by itself, while not being plugged into the stand. Very creepy.